Hello there, fellow Springfieldians, and welcome back to Simpsons Theory. Poor Hans Moleman. He's been brainwashed, run over, exploded, executed, and his groin has suffered multiple blows with an American football. But geez, hasn't his appearance taken the hit? He's only supposed to be 31 years old. Even though he may not look like he's recovered a great deal from these acts of violence, he has at least well survived, and has not admitted defeat like Maud Flanders and Bleeding Gums Murphy, who have not been so lucky in returning from death. Each time he comes back looking fresh for, well, the same as ever. Now, you may be thinking that we are being pretty harsh about this poor guy's appearance, but we have to downplay him somehow as we believe he's a bit of a superhuman, and we can't handle someone with this much power being egotistical as well. So let's jump to some of these superhuman theories surrounding this shriveled up prune of a man, ranging from clones to reincarnation. So let's break this down and understand just how many times Mole Man has stood in the face of his own demise, shall we? He's been torched by a sunbeam, buried alive in Springfield Cemetery, got drilled in the brain by Mr. Burns, got sucked into quicksand, got eaten alive by alligators, got crushed by a piece of an exploding whale, and of course the classic, the medieval, being impaled by a sword. And that's only a small fraction of some of the ways he's met his end. If I listed them all within this episode, it would be an hour long and pretty boring. So how does he survive? Well, one theory is that he's immortal. Yep, that's right. Even after something, well, like getting hit by a car, he comes back to the show with no injuries. He is undefeatable, more indestructible than Superman. He might even be the most OP character in history. He's the stuntman of the show when the narratives need a little bit of action. Many have also compared him to another classic cartoon character who keeps, well, meeting his end. This, of course, is Kenny from South Park. Some have theorised that they are in fact the same person. Hans Moleman may be an adult version of Kenny who has moved away from South Park and has settled into Springfield. Kenny kept his hood up a lot of the time in South Park. Could it be that the repeated demise of Kenny resulted in the slow deterioration of his appearance? Stress and, well, happenings like being run over by Arthur Fonzarelli's motorcycle can do that to you. Ultimately, he had to escape South Park to reinvent himself, so he wasn't compared to Kyle, Cartman and Stan, and after living in Springfield for a while, he could finally lower his hood, revealing his true self. And let's face it, there's lots of other hunky men that could distract us from Kenny's insecurities. Or perhaps he thought that if he moved away from Colorado, then maybe he wouldn't be set on fire as much. I guess that didn't work out too well. Another theory is Mole Man is in fact experiencing the same day every day, over and over again. He is perpetually stuck in a time paradox, in an endless cycle, much like Bill Murray's character in Groundhog Day. And every time he meets his grisly end, he just wakes up in his bed and the day starts all over again. This could explain why no one in Springfield ages. Bart has been 10 for about 30 years, and Maggie still hasn't formed a cohesive sentence. It has been argued that The Simpsons exists in some kind of temporal anomaly, where technology goes with real time but the characters do not, and this has been going on since 1987. But this is a whole different theory. It also doesn't explain how the characters Maud and Bleeding Gums Murphy died and were never seen again. Perhaps death is the only escape out of this time paradox, but by some cruel fate, only Mole Man is immune to this loophole. Perhaps he's been ending himself on purpose to escape the torture of being stuck in an endless cycle. Hey, this is just a theory and that's what we're all about here. And now, the final theory is that Mole Man is not just one person, but many. Imagine that. So every time you see Mole Man meeting a tragic but hilarious fate, he is just one of many, ready to be replaced in an instant, just like a delayed group of lemmings jumping from a cliff. In the episode Sweet and Sour Marge, the town attempt to build the world's biggest human pyramid. When it collapses, they form a human ball that rolls through Springfield. You have to look very closely, but within the ball we see two mole men. Also, in the episode Ned and Edna's Blend, we once again see two different mole men, one on the cross and another in the crowd. Quite sad and prolific in a way, Mole Man is being made to watch his ultimate fate right before his very eyes. You'll be next, Wrinkly. So how can there be more than one Hans Mole Man? Cloning is one theory and has been featured in many episodes of The Simpsons, including Days of Future Future, where Professor Frink clones Homer after he repeatedly dies. Also, in Sending the Clones, Homer buys a hammock that can clone him hundreds of times. And also, in the Princess Guide, we see numerous clones of Mr. Burns. So, is it preposterous to consider that Hans Moleman has cloned himself? Perhaps he accidentally fell into Frink's cloning machine, bought a weird hammock in a garage sale, or has had a rather calculating conversation with Burnsy, so Moleman can extend his legacy whilst fate is desperately keen to make him disappear. Another possible reason for multiple mole men relies on the discovery of the Mole People Society that lurk underneath Springfield. We see a glimpse of the secret community in the episode Hello Gutter, Hello Father. As Homer plummets through the sewers of the city, we see Hans Moleman controlling an earthquake machine. Also, judging by the crown on top of his pruny little head, he is the king of the Mole People. It stands to reason why there are hundreds of mole men, all identical in appearance, that roam underneath Springfield. We told you he'd be dangerous if his ego got too big. All hail King Moleman! What do you think to this theory? Is Moleman Kenny or is he a clone? Let us know in your comments below. I would like to say a big thank you to our newest Flying Healthfish Patreon, James Whitehead. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you would like to support this little yellow channel and to see your name featured in the credits, then check out my Patreon in the description below.